For the first time, he claims he made up stories while being tortured.
I will not regretting when I say I'm enemy combatant. I did it or not. Many detainees, false witnesses.
Talking, plus the accused mastermind of 9/11 claims he made up stories under torture. We're going to talk about it with a former military interrogator.
Now, in today's close-up, the alleged mastermind of the 9/11 attacks is heard on tape in English claiming he was tortured.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed says he lied because he wanted the harsh treatment, torture, to stop. And seen here, both after his capture and with the long beard during a military tribunal at Guantanamo Bay in March of 2007, Mohammed was asked if he wanted to change anything he said in his original testimony, and this is his response.
I say I'm enemy combatant. I did it or not, 9/11 or others. But there are many detainees which you will receive classified against them. Maybe they did not take from me. For many detainees, false witnesses.
Matthew Alexander is a former senior interrogator for the U.S. military who led the interrogation team that found Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, and he's also the author of How to Break a Terrorist. Karen Greenberg is executive director for the Center on Law and Security at New York University. She is the author of The Least Worst Place, Guantanamo's First 100 Days. And Jim Riches is the deputy chief of the New York City Fire Department. His son Jimmy was one of the firefighters killed in the attacks of 9/11. Jim is in Washington, where he attended a Department of Justice hearing on Guantanamo Bay detainees. Thank you all for joining us, an incredible panel of people. Matt, Theo, I would like to start off with you. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed saying he made things up. Does this then end the debate of whether you get accurate or reliable information when people are tortured?
Well, I think as an experienced interrogator, there never was a debate. I know, like any experienced interrogator does, that if you use coercive techniques, what you're shooting for is the minimum amount of information that detainee is going to give to make the torture or the pain stop. And that information is always going to be suspect in terms of accuracy. My team and I, we used relationship building approaches. We relied on cooperation versus coercion. And the information we received turned out to be highly accurate, very complete, and led to Abu Musab al-Zarqawi.
Karen, let me bring you in on this. Some of the other things that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed said when he was questioned about where Osama bin Laden was, he would say, I didn't know. He said they would torture me. And then he would say, yes, he's in this area, lying, making up, sending these officials on a wild goose hunt.
Right. I mean, one of the things that his new information or his new testimony tells us is that it's not just the moral dilemma and the moral problem with torture and coercive interrogation, it's also the legal process that it taints. And now we have a situation where Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is telling us that some of what he said under coercive interrogation was valid, some might not be valid, some of what the other detainees said might be valid, some might not, and who's to say? And without the full record...
Well, isn't he to say? He's saying, I made it up. Point blank.
He's saying what he made up, but how do we know what else he told us that he did make up or he didn't make up?
So are you willing to believe some of what he says and then not the other half of what he says? Is it convenient picking of or parsing of what appeals to one's argument?
I think what it does is to compromise the entire legal process, because you don't know at what point he is going to say, I said this, and how are we going to establish evidentiary standards? Are we going to give him a hearing so that there is some kind of tribunal that listens to the evidence and that listens to him saying what was false or what wasn't false and makes some determination based on other evidence? It compromises the situation, which is the problem with torture to begin with.
You know, I want to bring in Jim Riches here. Jim, I think most Americans would gladly embrace torturing these people who carried out 9/11 just for the pain that it inflicts. But as far as the effort to try to get out accurate information, what do you make of all of this?
I think he's a liar and a coward. I mean, I saw him in the courtroom at Guantanamo, and he said, you know, I did it, I'm glad I did it, and I'm proud I did it. I think he's just trying to get out of the process. He knows they're looking. They may end up in federal court, and all his confessions will be thrown out because he wasn't Mirandized. So, I mean, he's probably trying to save his skin, and he's a liar and a coward, and, you know, I think he's just doing it to save his skin. And, you know, I'd like to see him get the death penalty and die what he deserves. And he's just playing a game with the American government.
As far as the effort to get information, we know that when Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was first apprehended, he was asked about a possible connection between al-Qaeda and Iraq. He was not asked about potential attacks, at least initially, on the United States. Does that bother you at all?
Yeah, you know, I mean, if I have somebody, I want to find out what's going on. I think 7 years later, we have no accountability. All the families, we've waited 7 years. My son is dead. He was murdered. There's been no accountability. Somebody dropped the ball all along the way, whether it be both the Republicans and the Democrats, but something was done wrong. Hopefully now, we met with the Attorney General, Eric Holder, today. Hopefully they will try these guys. He said it's going to be either military commissions or each case will be looked at individually, and hopefully they'll get it right and do it quickly and swiftly so we get some swift justice for our murdered children.
And Karen, I want to bring you back in on this. The ACLU is they've expressed disappointment in the Obama administration because these re-released transcripts still have a lot of information blacked out. Do we need to see the entire picture so that you can have a quality debate, if you will, on the information Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is said to have given or not in this case?
The more information we have, the better. The more people are going to be at ease on both sides of the argument. However, probably in the case of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, we have an awful lot of information and probably enough to proceed. And I agree that the sooner we have these trials, the better. There is a lot of evidence, both 9/11 related evidence and pre-9/11 related evidence, or so we are told. But the ACLU has their point, which is that the more we know, the more we can make reasonable conclusions and judgments.
And also they want to know more to hold perhaps some within the previous administration accountable.
Correct. I mean, but I think that is in an entirely different issue than what we're talking about right now.
All right, Karen, Matthew, and Jim, thank you all for your time. Incredible panel of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you.